Hello, everybody. This is Fun Police, and today I am bringing you a look at the new Company of Heroes 3 balance patch that just came out a few minutes ago. This is my first look at the balance changes, and I'm essentially just going to go over them and react to them and just talk about them, and hopefully we'll see, is this a good one? Is this a bad one? We just got done watching a stream that overall seemed promising, so let's hope these notes are actually good. So, general gameplay changes: anti-tank rifles, the Afrika Korps Panzerjäger Panzerbuch, and British Corps Infantry Section Boys AT rifles. So, range reduced from 40 to 35, and when suppressed, the cooldown modifier is increased. So that's a good change overall. That means that MGs are going to make these AT rifles far less effective, and the less range means that they'll be less capable of chasing down enemy AT weapons. They're still probably going to be very good for denying like light vehicles to dive, but that's definitely a nice set of changes because those things were, especially when blobbed, like completely annihilating all the light vehicles. Auto reverse is being increased, so that's just a nice thing. Just 20 to 60. I don't know what exactly that amount is, but that's triple the distance that it will automatically auto reverse. So that is nice. That helps to make microing easier to do. Barbed wire, its armor has been increased. This was mentioned to stop things from being hard to, or making them harder to destroy, which, like you put a barbed wire down to like deny cover, and then all of a sudden, like any random shot would destroy it. Now that hopefully shouldn't be the case, so that's a good change. It's good to have barbed wire play in the game. The MG bunkers have a standardized build time to 20 seconds. Button abilities. So now fight back and are no longer immobilized. So it doesn't disable weapons, but sight and speed are decreased. Penetrating hits go to 50%. So if the button vehicle can actually penetrate the enemy armor, then they get more penalties on them. Duration set to 15 seconds. Indicator now added when the ability is active. Recharge time standardized to 120. That's overall a good set of changes. Button was essentially just an ability that like randomly just would like make any vehicle able to shut down the enemy. Like it was really kind of dumb when you'd like dive a medium tank onto whatever and then they just click button vehicle and then your tank just stops shooting until it could like get out of range. So that's good. It'll help to make it so dives are slower and give you more time to respond, but it definitely seems like that's more of a supportive ability now. Forward reinforcement times. This is a big one for particularly team games. The major things are that the reinforcement time in combat units has increased by 100%, and reinforcement time of units outside the HQ have increased by 100%. So this means that it is practically takes 3 times as long to reinforce if a unit is in combat and outside the HQ. So that should definitely make it so frontline like healing places are not able to turn your army into an immovable object like they were doing in team games. It was really like turning into static where unless you absolutely overrun the enemy, like they would just keep reinforcing and you had to either get your own or you had to essentially trade and fight, and then lose because they just never lost a model while you bled and then had to retreat. So this is a great change for team games. Also, mobile anti-tank gun teams have been upgraded. So they are not going to hit. They're going to be more accurate, not hitting objects in terrain. Their traverse speed is increasing. Aim time is going way down from half a second to 0.125 seconds. They have a standardized build time, reinforcement time has been standardized, and long range accuracy going up by 7%. These are probably, like, I would say, the three main ones. The faster aim time, faster swivel speed, and also the ability to just not hit terrain as much should make AT guns more accurate and probably will make them more useful overall. I'd be very curious, we'll have to see in game, but these do seem like significant buffs, and AT guns were pretty bad before. Heavy machine guns have been changed, standardized their manpower to 240. All of them have 90 health now instead of 80. Horizontal traverse speed increased from 35 to 50. Infantry now become pinned faster. Reinforcement time standardized to 5 seconds. Suppression radius increased, and then suppression takes 3 seconds longer. This seems like definitely a huge set of changes to make machine guns actually useful. The biggest things are these suppression radius and lasting suppression. This should make it so if you're trying to blob into a machine gun, it's going to suppress more of the squads, and the squads will remain suppressed, which should hopefully make a machine gun actually able to stop like blobs. We'll have to see how effective this is. Again, all of this will have to be seen in game, but this does seem like a good set of changes to essentially make machine guns actually able to counter blobs. Also nice that they're more durable now, so it'll be harder for like blobs to bleed them, which is a good thing. Smoke has gone from 30 seconds to 20 seconds. Again, a good thing. Smoke is kind of silly where you would just kind of like smoke a point and then you'd run your guys on there and then the enemy would have to run in there and you both just sat there because like it lasted for so long. So reducing this is a good thing. 20 seconds is still plenty of time to like move up on an enemy if you're actually attacking. It's just you don't get to like decap a point for free now. Then we have snipers. So essentially, I believe this is mainly a nerf to the US sniper. So aim time has been standardized to 1.75 seconds. Target size increased to 1.5. Vision range decreased from 45 to 35. And weapon cooldown increased from 3.5 to 3.75 seconds. So that means that overall, these units will be slower to fire, and they're also easier to chase down. Because there were several clips of like a light vehicle diving on a sniper, following it back to the base and never killing it. This seems to be a change that'll make it so snipers are, namely the US sniper, is not able to like horrifically bleed anything it faces, and then also is easier to kill if you actually choose to do a light vehicle dive. And those are the general changes. Overall, I like them. These seem like a good set of changes, nice quality of life stuff, and then they've nerfed forward reinforcement times, which is good for team games. AT guns and machine guns seem more worthwhile, and then they've nerfed smoke and snipers. That seems like a good rounding of some of the more weird stuff that wasn't seeing use. I could, we'll have to see in game, but I could see, like, actually using this stuff now if these buffs prove effective at least. But now we get on to faction changes. So starting out, US forces struggle in team game modes where their advantages are less pronounced, is to improve their mid-game options, reduce the price of certain upgrades, and strengthen their light vehicle play. So starting out, 4v4 truck, the Jeep it's now more lethal. Its self-repair ability is more effective. And then its veteran capture and decapture speed has been increased. So that is a decent buff to the lethality of it. We'll have to see how that does because not a lot of people were using the Jeep because people weren't going riflemans or tried not to go riflemans in a lot of builds. But a lot of that might be changing. So we might see actually more Jeep play, especially with stuff like the Armored Battle Group that can give it Vet 1 immediately. So this could be a pretty significant buff for a strategy like that. Advanced logistics. Manpower costs reduced from 250 to 200. So advanced logistics was a upgrade that was available within, I believe, the infantry support center, if my memory serves me right. and that was the one that I think reduced the cost of munition upgrades. I'd have to check, but small manpower reduction makes it a bit easier to get. You have assault engineers, reinforcement cost decrease, so they're now going to bleed you a little less. Bazooka team, so the destroy obstacle ability got a nerf, which is reasonable because like it was kind of silly that the bazooka team essentially could like snipe infantry, like enemy infantry, with its ability to destroy cover. So that seems like a change, an intended change. And then the white phosphorus rocket also got a nerf. So bazooka teams actually took 2 nerfs overall. I assume mainly just to make them so they're not actually like as lethal against infantry, because that was something we saw. Weirdly, a lot of infantry handheld AT is like surprisingly good at killing infantry. So this seems to kind of be in the same vein as that. Then we have engineers. They also got the reinforcement cost, so small buff to the engineers, same as the assault engineers. Not exactly great. Engineers have kind of struggled in the US because like you just get riflemen and they're better at, like combat, but you do build one to repair, so I guess it's nice they're a little cheaper. The grenade package for the barracks has had its fuel cost decrease from 25 to 15, and its research time is 5 seconds faster. Big buff, I think, to riflemen. I think that's a very nice upgrade. The reason being is that riflemen have this weakness where they don't have a lot of AT against enemy light vehicles, especially before they get their own light vehicle. So now the grenade package could actually be like reasonably gotten without like essentially delaying your light vehicle by several minutes. And the grenade package just seems a little more viable overall. It's the same cost as the British one now, I believe, so that should be a good change. High velocity armor piercing rounds, so can no longer pierce through shot blocking obstacles. HVAP rounds now use the reload time of the parent vehicle's main weapon. So this is general reload time decrease of 1 second, resulting in increased rate of fire. So the HVAP rounds, when you toggle them, should make the vehicle fire faster. So that should help with the Sherman, the Easy 8, and the Hellcat. So those are nice. The Easy 8 and the Hellcat both have been struggling, so that's a good change overall. M3 75mm gun motor carriage. We have adjusted to be geared to destroying lighter vehicles and providing fire support against units like dug-in infantry and machine guns. Aim time massively decreased from 1 second to 1.25 seconds, same as the AT gun. Barrage range decreased, but the recharge has been decreased by nearly half its time. Penetration values have been lowered though, so it's no longer able to like duel a tank or something like that. It's more so for bullying enemy light vehicles. Reload time has been decreased by about a second almost, and then rotation rate increased also. So this should be a lot more effective at actually, like, it should be actually good in the early game now. Previously, you really only went with the M16 flak, or not flak, the AA half track, because it just did so much better, and like this was so slow. So this seems to be a massive buff to it. We'll have to see, but I think that this could be actually a decent like light vehicle for the US now if they go for like the weapon support center. Like you could actually get this and like contest like maybe an 8-rad with it, but I guess we'd have to see in game if that's actually the case or not. M3 half track, the 75mm gun motor carriage has been decreased in cost. Manpower has been lowered. So the regular half track now also has shared veterancy, so it can vet up quicker. Nice little changes, not bad. Makes it a bit easier to get out in the early game, and it's easier to turn it into the AT version that just got mega buffed, so that's nice. M4 Sherman 105 Dozer. Small manpower cost reduction. That, I'm not the biggest fan of that. That doesn't seem like it's going to be enough. The Dozer, at least right now, seems like it really just kind of lacks a place because you just get Shermans and they do it like way better and they can fight tanks. Shaving 20 manpower off the cost of the Dozer Sherman is not going to change that. So I was kind of hoping for like maybe a range buff or maybe making it more lethal, but yeah, I don't see a lot changing in that. So I don't think people are going to use this still. M8 Greyhound. So I believe if my memory serves me correctly, these are just reversions of the nerfs, or no, because they nerfed the main gun, but they're increasing the coaxial and the pintle. So they're now better at bleeding infantry, but they're worse against tanks. So the Greyhound might be actually good at murdering like infantry now, and that could actually give them a use. And then their speed, they're also a little faster. So they might be really good at chasing down enemy infantry, and also should be very solid at damaging just bleeding infantry overall. M8 Scott, which is in the armored battle group, is getting a change. Minimum barrage range decreased by 5, so it can shoot at more point-blank range. Cost decreased by 10 fuel and 40 manpower. Explosive barrage reload time is about a second faster. Horizontal weapon traverse speed from 30 to 40 to 45. Reload time decreased by about a second. And vertical weapon traverse speed increase. So overall, so it still has very short range, but it is cheaper and it shoots a lot faster. That might be enough to make it like a decent way to support. Still might struggle to see how you use this because I think the US lacks a lot of like longer range artillery, and I was hoping the M8 Scott could maybe turn into that, but they didn't buff the range of this at all. So like it'll still potentially get murdered by like enemy AT or just like a tank diving it. I guess it is cheaper, but like these are good buffs, but I don't know if it's exactly what the M8 Scott or the US wants out of a vehicle like this. M16 gun motor carriage. This is the AA half track. Armor decreased, so it has less armor. It has prioritized vehicles now. Damage against aircraft is massively decreased. Okay, so that's a lot. Wow, 77.5%. Granted, the M16 was really good at just like murdering a plane in one burst, so I guess it makes sense, but that's a big number. So that might completely. And I think that's the only anti-air the US really has outside of pintle guns. So I guess we'll see where that takes us, but that's a big change. And then they also nerf the penetration at longer ranges. That actually matters a bit. Makes it so this is a little less effective against enemy vehicles. So this overall, it seems like they nerfed the anti-air, so it's not a laser gun, and then they nerfed its ability to fight enemy vehicles. Reasonable because it is really powerful, but that doesn't change the fact that it is also like stupidly strong against like enemy AT or against enemy infantry. Like that is a big change in terms of its vehicle and anti-air, but it's really good at killing infantry, and they didn't slow its timing down at all, and they also are leaving the infantry killing power intact. I don't know. I guess we'll see if they nerf something like Pathfinders, because Pathfinders were still kind of problematic. Granted, they are trying to buff the US, so I understand that, but like, I don't know. This is a weird change to me. I would have expected a small nerf to the lethality of it, and then maybe the anti-air nerfs, and this would be a little more in line, but instead they just made it worse against vehicles, which makes sense, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. M24 Chaffee light tank. These changes make the unit more effective at hunting down other light vehicles, giving it better maneuverability to flank heavier vehicles and disengaging from enemy threats. So higher acceleration, better deacceleration, cheaper in manpower cost, medium vehicle pathing, and medium crush, so it can now kind of bulldoze through certain things. Faster rotation rate, reload time decreased, saving about a third of a second off, and then speed increased from 5.5 to 6.5. So that's about as fast as It's a little faster than what the Greyhound was going now. So that's, I mean, definitely like moving faster, like, because the Chaffee does have to like dive enemy vehicles, and this does give it that role. It's still kind of expensive, but maybe there are some things now that you can actually use with the Chaffee and Greyhound, and you could do like double light vehicles. I guess we'll have to see what other buffs are coming to the weapon supports or the motor pool, because these changes are good, but at the same time, like, they're massive commitments, and these things are better, definitely, but I guess we'll see if they're good enough. Bars have had their research time decreased by 15 seconds, so that's going to make the power spike faster. M1919 Heavy MG team is 30 seconds faster to build. Riflemen are getting some big changes. Poured Onum has received a heavy adjustment to suppression. Riflemen have had their accuracy slightly increased to improve their effectiveness and range. So the bars have essentially been a little more lethal at longer ranges, so riflemen should be more well-rounded. But then they nerfed the Poured Onum, so it no longer has suppression, it looks like. So it's just a straight damage boost. It takes a minute longer to use, minute longer to recharge. Oh, area suppression. Okay, so it's not able to suppress like a machine gun. It's only the squad the riflemen are shooting at that can get suppressed. But it's a general decrease. And then this is just all of the decreases. So Poured Onum is like was pretty OP. Like, it essentially turned one rifleman into a machine gun when you press the button. And like, that was kind of ridiculous. So now it can still suppress, and it still should be really good in 1v1s. But like, against multiple squads, riflemen should be a little worse at winning them. Yet at the same time, faster bars and also an increase to the power of bars probably compensates that nicely. Like, bars are a little easier to get now, although they still are quite expensive. So I guess we'll see. Survival training has been changed. It's 30 fuel cheaper and also applies to weapon crews. Survival training was that infantry support center upgrade that gave all of your infantry plus 10 health. That's a nice change overall. Adding 10 health to your squads is not massive per se, but like, it does mean that at 50 fuel, I could see actually taking that, because it does kind of turn like riflemen, once they're fully prepared, into like really powerful units. And it also applying the team weapons should also be nice, like machine guns and mortars and things like AT guns can actually maybe take a bit more of a punch. So the Easy 8 Sherman from the Armored Company is also getting a change. High velocity HVAP rounds is, instead of a veteran ability, it's the default. All right, and then veterancy abilities change to match this M4 Sherman, so it either gets high explosive or white phosphorus rounds. So having HVAP as a basic ability is good. Like, it allows because HVAP was kind of like crucial to take on the Easy 8, because it was the only way the vehicle really justified its cost. So that being a default one is nice. I still worry the Easy 8 might not be the strongest tank out there, because it costs like more than a Panther, and even with HVAP, the Easy 8 doesn't really win against a Panther or something like that. So yeah, it's I don't know. The fact you have to pay for like a random rifleman squad for each of these tanks is so expensive. Like, this is good. This should make the Easy 8 like stand out more, but man, paying 600 manpower for one of those is quite a lot. Whizbang also got a change, so it went down 20 fuel and 20 manpower, and also a little less pop cap. Good changes, but I was hoping for just a small range increase. Uh, Kind of a shame that the Whizbang is like not actually. It's a shame that the Whizbang is like not outranging AT guns still. Like, the Whizbang has to sit on the front line. I don't know. This is like, I'm not gonna complain, but this also like isn't. So overall, it seems like they are definitely trying to make the US more well-rounded in terms of its base package. Rifleman got a bunch of buffs. They're buffing the light vehicles, the AT, and the machine guns. There's some upgrades that got buffed. Like, all good changes. But I feel like they are still kind of neglecting an issue in the US team games where they need range. They need artillery that can shoot at a distance. Like, that is something that they're just lacking. And these changes to the Scott and the Whizbang, not like I can't complain about them, but at the same time, they're not fixing, I think, a problem with the US and team games. So that's, I think, the biggest letdown. Then we move on to the battle groups. So the battle groups, overall, rapid production down from 1 to 0. Seek and destroy command point cost increase from 2 to 3. And then steal in command. So they're essentially trying to make it a bit easier to go down the tech path. So essentially all of these are a little bit faster, and Seek and Destroy went up by 1. I assume Seek and Destroy is to slow down certain rushes that you could do otherwise, but in other regards, it's just a bit faster to get like your rapid production going. Field repairs have been reworked. So ability duration went up, health restored increased, munition cost went down, can activate while vehicle is on the move. So tanks can vehicle, so that should be a nice ability now. Oh, they are buffing the combat group. So they're shaving off 20 fuel and about 160 manpower, also lower in command points. And now enters carrying a veteran level 1 assault engineer. That's actually a lot better now. Wow, that I actually, yeah, that's actually really nice. Wow, cuz like one big problem with the US is that they so often like suck at repairing. Like the US actually like is major crap at like repairing. So getting a vetted up infantry squad now instead of like just a basic ass rifleman, and this also being cheaper, like this might actually be enough. Okay, I see what they're doing. Whizbang also went down in Spec Ops. That's nice. So good changes. Armored is definitely like the one that was suffering the most. Like that was the one you saw the least. I could see maybe the Easy 8 is actually worth it now. Maybe you could actually do something like, go to motor pool, spam light vehicles and AT guns, and then just rely on the Easy 8 Sherman to carry your late game, and you never have to tech up. Could be an actual thing now. That's interesting. Now we move on to the Wehrmacht. Wehrmacht is a big one. Got a variety of changes, mostly to improving the Panzer Grenadier Company, buffing builds, nerfing Jaegers, and improving the early game. 251, Stummel upgrade now goes to 60 munitions. Shared veterancy. Regal Mines now properly camouflage and trigger. Regal Mine does way more damage. This is almost enough to, I think, one-shot, like, I want to say this one-shot stuff like the Greyhound now and the Stewart, so that's a notable buff. And then faster deployment time. So nice buffs overall to the 251. This is why did they order this? Why couldn't they go in like sets? This seems like so randomly written up. Anyway, jumping over 221 armored car. So it's 5 fuel cheaper and 40 fuel or 60 manpower cheaper, and then 5 fuel cheaper. The Panzer Bush upgrade, or Bush, I'm butchering that, I know, apologies. But mid-range accuracy increased, far-range accuracy increased, and then speed massively increased. I don't know if people are still going to use this, because this thing kind of sucks. I was hoping for, like, maybe they buff the armor or something, but yeah, I don't see this being used. This, to me, still seems bad. I thought the MG needed to be a little more lethal. It is very fast, but it honestly doesn't seem that great. But maybe you have to use it because you need like, this is the only AT worth using now if they nerf the Shreks too much. But otherwise, I don't see a way you really utilize that. Fallschirmjägers got a nerf. so they're a bit slower to shoot with the FG42. Fallschirm Pioneers are now a little more expensive. They bleed a bit more. The 20mm AA gun got a very small build speed increase. Grenadiers have gotten a variety of changes. So assault package went up 5 munitions. The munition cost for sprint got removed. But the recharge time for sprint is now at 3 minutes. So it's like the US one now on riflemen. Manpower cost decreased from 270 to 260. That's nice. Medkit healing duration from 15 to 30. Big nerf to the medkits, although the medkits were pretty silly. Like, you pressed it, it was literally click a button, and then, like, you look away for a second, and then by the time you, like, look back, the Grenadiers would be at full health. So this is a bit slower now. Okay, yeah, so that is, so the medkits last longer, but they do heal slower. Veterancy levels also got buffed. So Veterancy level 2 accuracy bonus increased from 10 to 15. So once Grenadiers get Veterancy 2, they're going to be even more effective. And then they also lowered the Veterancy requirement. So these guys should vet a lot quicker. Yeah, honestly, Grenadiers were not that bad. Like, especially because now the MG42 is usable. Like in all honesty, Grenadiers weren't that bad of a unit. Like, I know a lot of people complained about them, but like, these are good changes. Like, this is a good change to make Grenadiers like more durable, and they're a little cheaper. They are a little less insane when they're healing. Their assault package is a little less spammy with it, but then they also vet faster. And once they get vet, they're actually pretty nice. So that's good. Fall down ability. This ability now has a delayed activation to prevent immediate defensive boosts. So that's just nice because, like, you just press a button and then randomly your Panzer IV would just, like, instantly, like, gain a bunch of resistances, and that was kind of stupid. So now that got changed. Jaeger light infantry, all right, this is where they're going to nerf them. So capture rate has been lowered. So they're slower at capturing. Smoke grenade range decreased. Sight range got decreased. The recon package now gives back the various things. So they did a bunch of things. They essentially kind of nerfed the basic Jaegers and then gave that to the recon package. And then the Panzerschreck, so worse against infantry expected. Area of effect damage removed expected. Long range aim time increased, so they can't snipe as much anymore. They're slower to actually aim it, and then scatter increased. So overall, they're just making the Shreks a bit easier to do, especially at long range. You can bleed them a bit more, so blobs of these should be a lot less effective. And with the other nerfs, like, this should make Jaegers like a lot more. It should actually be a choice now, and you need to kind of get some recon and some Panzerschreck units. The Martyr 3M, they buffed the long range accuracy by 20%. So that's a bit concerning because the Martyr 3 is kind of a problematic unit right now, because if you spam them, then you just kind of like kill any tank and they just buff that. That might be a problem. I was actually expecting a nerf to the Martyr, but they instead buffed it. Okay. I guess in the Wehrmacht it's a little less problematic because the Desert Africa Corps had the Martyr, and that was like their go-to strategy of just spam Martyrs. I guess we'll see, but I don't know. That seems a bit dangerous to make the Martyr even better when it's like already like so dominant in the Desert Africa Corps, unless they're diversifying the units now. All right, we'll have to hold off on that until we see the DAC change. But this is a bit worrisome. Build time for machine gun went down a second. Okay, whatever. Officer quarter upgrade. So a little bit faster timing when you upgrade the infantry quarters. That's a nice change because that veterancy is good. The command tank, faster acceleration, faster deceleration. So just a little bit faster overall. So it gets out of a situation a bit faster. Panzer Grenadier Squad went down from 360 to 340. I think that's the same as the Jaegers now, so that's a good change because Panzer Grenadiers are nice. It's just the rest of their thing was a little less capable. So this is where we're getting a bunch of buffs. So we saw the Stummel got upgraded, the 251 got upgraded, the Panzer Grenadiers, the Pak 40 got upgraded, and now the Stug 3, faster acceleration. So it went down 60 manpower, but up 10 fuel. Faster deceleration, long range accuracy went up a bit, rotation rate increased. That's nice, so it can actually like not get like circle strafed as much. Reload time got up, and then weapon penetration also went up. So this should make it like actually much more capable at brawling with like enemy medium tanks. I could see like using Stug 3s as like an actual like medium brawler now. That's a nice change overall. The Stoss Troop have been buffed a lot, so they now have a bit of armor to make them more durable. Their DPS has been increased. These are just, I believe, all of these so essentially, their overall, they just got buffs. They're a bit more durable, and they're a bit more lethal, and then these are all the changes they've done. Reinforcement cost and then they went up a little bit. So, yeah, Stoss Troop were kind of rare to see happen, but overall now this should be pretty good. This should be a little bit more attractive. They're still expensive, but like a little more lethal, and that armor is a big thing. Armor is a big thing in infantry. Like that's the same armor that the Guastatori have now. So they're the same durability, or I think more so because they have more health. So overall a buff. The Stug 3D got a change. Faster rotation rate and better acceleration, so just a buff there. The Stummel half track, which, man, why are they not putting these buffs together? This is really annoying. I'm getting whiplash from this. Okay, so they buffed the Stug 3D acceleration. This was in the mechanized battle group. That's a nice change. The Stummel is having its changed increase, so it's getting more range. Minimum range is removed, area of effect radius increased, damage increased, and penetration for barrage and auto fire standardized to 20. So better at bleeding infantry, should be a bit more usable overall. That's overall a good set of changes. Then you have the Brumbar, which also got changes. So it went down 10 fuel, faster rotation rate, reload time buffed, speed increased a bit, and then build time decreased. Should make it a bit better, although the Brumbar also still kind of has an issue where it has to be facing a thing to shoot. I was kind of hoping they fixed that, but I guess they didn't. Just so you know, in Company of Heroes 2, the Brumbar can actually aim its gun a little bit. It's got a very small like area that it can aim without moving, and that doesn't exist in Company of Heroes 3. And I was hoping that got added, but I guess not. The Vesp got a change. Barrage time was increased overall, so actually kind of worth using now. That's a buff to the mechanized battle group. Breakthrough, they buffed the Command Panzer IV tank. I still don't think you take it because you have to give up the Tiger, but I guess if you really needed something, you could. I don't think it's worth it, though. Like, this, I don't think anything's worth it compared to the Tiger. So, kind of a nothing change in my opinion. LG-40 and reserve infantry are now changed. That's good. The LG-40 needed to be like faster because you just didn't use it otherwise. I don't know if that's enough to make the LG usable, but it's nice that you can at least maybe get it like a bit earlier. The Fallschirmjägers are going up 40 manpower. Fallschirm Pioneers went up 20 manpower and also slower cooldown. Then Mechanized got a series of buffs. The 8-Rad is now faster in timing. The Stoss Troop assault package is cheaper. The Stug 3D assault group, and then the munition cost increased from 80 to 120. All good changes. Mechanized kind of had an issue where it wanted to be like the armored vehicle timing like battle group, and then all of its stuff came later than every other battle group. So actually nice to see. Overall, that's a good set of changes for it. I guess we'll have to see. Like, it really depends. The Panzer Grenadier building is really going to rely on AT guns, so hopefully those buffs are enough, but I guess we'll see. Like the battle group changes overall, but let's jump into the British forces now. British forces, so obviously the big thing is they're going to be nerfing sections, but they're also going to try to improve combined arms. So the bishop got a nerf. That's reasonable. Its barrage was ridiculous, so fast and so spammy. But the 5.5-inch artillery emplacement, 30 seconds faster to build, massive time. So it's a lot easier to build instead of waiting for a whole minute. It's less than a minute now. The Centaur, so they're buffing it. Expected because it really sucks. It kind of sucked at the moment. So it is much bigger area of effect, a little bit cheaper, faster to aim, faster reload. Veteran smoke shot only fires 1 round, so it can just shoot it and then back out, and faster speed. Good changes overall. People really didn't use the Centaur that much. It was overall pretty underwhelming in terms of its abilities, but now that should be a bit better. The CMP-15 AA truck, now it is... So they're adjusting it to be way more effective against anti-air, but now they're going to visit it in the future. I assume because people still aren't taking it because the Humbar and the Stuart are just so much better. Nice that it's now more effective now. Previously, it really sucked. So this is a good set of changes for that. The Bren Commando Light Machine Gun, 350 manpower to 320, and pop cap reduced. That's nice. Commandos are way cheaper to reinforce. That's good. Commandos were so expensive as a CQC squad, so this is a lot more reasonable. The Crusader has been nerfed, actually, going from 60 to 70. So it's now more expensive to get a Crusader out. That's actually a pretty notable nerf because a big thing with the British was you kind of rushed out a Crusader to have like a medium tank. So that's a little bit slower. The Dingo, less range on its abilities, but its barrage is actually a bit cheaper. Medical supplies have been increased, so it's going to heal units around it for longer. So they buffed the distribute medical supplies and then kind of nerfed the barrage range. Infantry sections, they added the base of fire has to be in cover now. I guess that makes sense, but I really don't like the British having this cover stuff going on. Uh, I like I guess I don't know. I'm not a fan of this. I don't like the cover mechanic, and I'm not happy to see it returning. I'd rather them just kind of nerf the veteran C1 other ways, like just make it less effective or something, rather than oh, now you have to have your units sitting in cover, because that's that I don't like that in the Company of Heroes 2 British faction, and now it's back in Vet 1, so I don't like that. But they did buff the coordinated barrage for the Reese package by making it cheaper. Matilda has less pop cap now. Build time increased for the Royal Engineers, so you can't spam them as much. The training center is getting a variety of changes. So combat bonuses now only apply once to units with at least 1 level of veterancy. Damage bonuses removed, and upgrades no longer stack per veterancy level, just a 10% bonus that is applied once. That's reasonable. Training center allowed you to just kind of spam infantry sections, and they'd outscale everything in the game. So that's a pretty realistic nerf. Vickers got a build time increase, or decrease, I should say. So they mainly nerfed the training center, they kind of nerfed the infantry sections, and then they buffed a variety of the units that were kind of underwhelming. Then we have British battle groups. So they are making it harder to get the airstrikes, nerfing naval blockade, so it no longer locks enemies out of capping for a minute. Only 30 seconds now. Black Prince cost went up by 1, so they're making it a bit slower to come out. Indian artillery, Changes to the battle group better reflect the power of volunteer infantry and its roles. It's a middle to late game option that requires players to commit to the end of the battle group tree. So Warcry and volunteer infantry. Volunteer infantry is the reinforcement reduction. So it's just going to be a slower ability to get out. The 4.2 heavy inch mortar added 20 fuel to it, so you have to spend fuel to get this heavy mortar now. And then perimeter monitor cost increased. This was the artillery that barraged all of the units that were like in your territory. So now that went up a bunch of munitions. Overall, fine changes. I have to admit, I'm not the biggest British player, so I can't comment as much about them. But let's move on to the Afrika Korps, the final nation, and we can wrap up this pretty long video. The Afrika Korps were oppressive in its middle and late game, while also being very overly vulnerable early on. Minor adjustments to even out this by strengthening its early game and reducing the power of its armory upgrades. Glad they're hitting the armory upgrades. Those armory upgrades are problematic as hell. So starting out, so the 250 carrier, so 20 millimeter is cheaper to get on it. Build time is faster, and then they're buffing the distribute medical supplies. So longer duration and lower recharge time. That's a good set of changes. Advanced field repairs, manpower reduced. So infantry now repair a lot faster, and it's a little cheaper. Booby trap. So now you can actually destroy booby traps if you know where they are. That's nice. Emergency repair kits. Manpower cost increased from 250 to 325. So that is important. The emergency repair kits was really stupidly strong, so now it's a lot more expensive. That's 75 more manpower. Fire support elements cost reduced, so it's 5 fuel cheaper and 50 manpower. This is the tier like 1.5 with the flak half track and the AT gun and all that. So it being cheaper is nice. Still very expensive though. So, but it looks like they're buffing that stuff also, so that's nice. So the Flak 36, longer build time than the Flak Verling half track. It's having its effectiveness increase to better reflect its timing and role as a low durability but high firepower unit. So better accuracy, less scatter on it, burst duration increased, weapon cooldown decreased, and then long range cooldown multiplier. Essentially, it's going to be better at actually murdering and suppressing infantry, but it's still very vulnerable and quite expensive. I don't know if this, like the fire support and the Flak Verling, is actually still going to be like taken compared to just rushing an 8 rad. Maybe they've got an 8 rad changed, but we'll revisit these if the 8 rad gets nerfed. Otherwise, I think people are still just going to rush the 8 rad. But now we got the Guastatori. Guastatori have been adjusted to remove their anti-vehicle snare, focusing their role as an anti-infantry and anti-garrison unit. Their cost has been reduced to reflect this, so they no longer have that AT ability, but they're back to 400 manpower. They can plant mines, and their gas mask now requires Vet 1. Good changes overall. 440 manpower was really expensive for the Guastatori. Like, they were so expensive. But now they're not like a generalist. They mess up infantry still, but those AT satchels no longer exist, so vehicles can just roll up to a Guastatori and don't have to worry about them. The Kradsuchen. So the Kradsuchen is now 5 seconds faster to build. A little bit faster. Especially if you're going like with Panzer Grenadiers, you can get this out a little quicker, cap up the map, and then have your Panzer Grenadiers come later. The L640, the armor of the L640 has been increased, pushing this unit towards a low-health vehicle that is immune to heavy machine guns and small arms. So that's a notable actual buff. You never really built the L640 because it just died to, like, anything. It's still going to die to, like, any stiff breeze or anything that has, like, a cannon or AT on it, but being immune to HMGs and whatnot is still a notable buff to it, so that's nice. IG-18 build time reduced by about 15 seconds. Build time for the MG-34 set to 30 seconds. The pack crew is now 30 manpower cheaper. The Panzerjäger tear gas shot no longer creates a white phosphorus cloud. So it essentially is just kind of, that's a visual change. But these are good changes to the weapon teams. Should be a lot more reasonable overall. They're buffing the build times of the Panzer Grenadiers, a little bit faster to come out. Rapid advance manpower cost increased. So those are nice. The Stug 3D, buffing it again, actually. So faster acceleration, better rotation, but its support advance ability is being reduced a bit. Still, the Stug 3D was actually really strong anyway, so this is buffing like an already strong unit. So I think this is going to encourage people to like rush this even more now because it's just even more effective. I don't know. It's weird. Like, these are good buffs, but they're only doing like minor nerfs. Like, I'm not seeing a Martyr 3 change actually. Oh geez. So they're nerfing the armory, which is a good thing because the armory is like really problematic for the Desert Africa Corps. These changes aren't bad, but man, this is a bit worrisome. I was hoping for some more changes to the Desert Africa Corps. Like, namely, I thought that the Armored Reserves call-ins needed changes, but those aren't getting changes. And then, yeah, I'm not too happy with these Desert Africa Corps changes. But let's finish this off. The Tungsten round, the damage bonus has been removed. So, but the penetration is a little bit higher now. And then the Vehicle Survival Package. So the health boost for this first repair is 80 from 80 to 40. That's a big change actually. That is nerfing it. So previously, if you got the survival package and the repair kits, your vehicles would actually have like enough health to survive 2 shots. That is no longer the case. So getting all of these actually doesn't matter as much. But like that means that, like, for example, spamming martyrs now have a little less health running around. So that's actually quite notable. Armored support, so salvage command point, assault salvage reduced from 3 to 2. The flame tank went up by a command point. Panzer Storm went from 3 to 2. Superior fire drills went from 2 to 1. Ooh, they're buffing the superior fire drills. Oh, geez. Stuka anti-tank loiter command points increased from 3 to 5. Veteran gunners command point from 2 to 1. Italian combined arms force recon ability reduced from 2 to 1. Secure location from 2 to 1. So this is terrifying because already there's like some really strong strategies where you just rush like the 8 rad with superior fire drills and it just like completely decimates infantry, and they just buffed that. That's concerning. So just to recap and kind of round out this video that's been going for quite a long time, so I like the generalist changes. These all seem pretty good. The US changes I'm also a fan of. These are overall like a good set of changes. I think they're missing on giving the US more indirect options, or at least ones with good range on them. That didn't change. The Wehrmacht, really, I guess we're going to see how it changes. Like, these are good changes. Jaegers are no longer overpowered like they were before. But I guess we'll have to see where they end up. The battle groups did get a good set of changes. The British forces, they did the important thing of nerfing the training center, so that's not as overtuned. Infantry sections and the AT rifles are now not as like broken either. Although I'm not a fan of how they nerfed the Vet 1 ability in infantry sections. They also buffed a couple other things that were underwhelming. And then I'm actually not a fan of the Africa Corps changes. Like, some of these are nice, but also not, I think, adjusting the right things. I think they needed to look a bit more into this fire support elements building. Like, this seemed to really need some buffs. Then they're also, like, they're buffing the Stug 3D. They're not nerfing the Martyr. They're nerfing... I have a lot of concern that this isn't going to do a lot for the Desert Africa Corps. They're going to just like continue to go like whatever, like Versailles, and then you just go to an 8 rad with superior fire drills, and then you just spam the hell out of martyrs, and that's still the dominant strategy, and there's no changes to that. So I don't know. I'm not a fan of this so far. It seems like of all of them, the DAC is getting kind of the short, is both being left the most unchanged, but also like it seems like it's kind of stuck in still just a very similar build. But I guess we'll see. It is overall a nice patch. I'm glad that they are adjusting. Like, these seem like most of them are sensible. There are some oversights, I think, but overall, this seems like a good set of changes. And I do like that they are overall changing like so much. Like, it's good, and I hope that this is a patch, maybe hopefully it doesn't go catastrophically wrong, because this is an important patch for Company of Heroes 3, and I really hope that, you know, like, these changes are all sensible, but I worry about the deck over. Regardless, that is my very long video on this entire patch note. So make sure to like and subscribe. Those are my thoughts on it. Let me know down in the comments below, what do you like about this? But otherwise, if you've watched all the way through, thanks so much for watching, and I hope you have a good day.